The human body is often thought of as a finely tuned instrument, each part contributing in its own quiet way to the overall harmony of life. When we pause to consider its countless systems, from the pumping heart to the whispering breath of the lungs, from the intricate firing of neurons to the steady digestion of food, we begin to sense just how remarkable this living structure is. Yet, among all of these systems, some work with such subtlety and quiet persistence that we hardly notice them at all. The lymphatic system is one of these. It is not dramatic. It does not announce itself with strong rhythms or sensations, and it rarely draws attention unless something goes wrong. But in its gentle constancy, it sustains balance, supports immunity, and keeps the body in a steady state of health. To understand the importance of this system, it helps to picture the body as a landscape. Imagine rivers of blood flowing through arteries and veins, carrying oxygen and nutrients to every cell. Around these rivers lie the tissues, each composed of countless living cells engaged in their daily work. As these cells perform their tasks, they produce waste, release fluids, and rely on a delicate environment in which to survive. If too much fluid collects in the tissues, swelling occurs. If waste is not cleared, cells falter. The lymphatic system steps in quietly here, like a network of hidden streams and channels that drain the excess, cleanse the environment, and return what is useful back to circulation. It is a silent partner to the cardiovascular system, complementing it in ways that ensure every cell lives in balance. This silent partner is not powered by a central pump like the heart. Its flow is slow, deliberate, and reliant on the gentle contractions of surrounding muscles, the rhythmic movements of breathing, and the steady pulse of everyday motion. In this way, it mirrors the calm background rhythms of life itself. Even while you sit still, even while you sleep, the lymphatic system is at work, moving fluid drop by drop through its vessels, filtering it through nodes, and carrying it onward until it merges once more with the blood. Beyond its role in maintaining balance of fluids, the lymphatic system has another duty, one that is perhaps even more vital. It is a guardian of the body's internal world, a network through which immune cells travel, communicate, and prepare to respond to threats. At various checkpoints called lymph nodes, these cells wait in quiet readiness, scanning the passing fluid for any sign of invaders. Should bacteria, viruses, or other harmful particles be detected, the immune cells awaken and begin their protective work. But most of the time, the lymph nodes simply filter and allow the fluid to continue, a quiet act of constant vigilance. The lymphatic system also connects to organs devoted to immunity, such as the spleen, the thymus, and the tonsils. Each of these plays a role in training, housing, or supporting immune cells. Together, they form not just a drainage system for fluids, but a distributed community of guardians, always working in cooperation. This dual role of drainage and defense makes the lymphatic system unique among the body's networks. It sustains physical balance, while also serving as a foundation for resilience. Though it may seem small and hidden, the lymphatic system stretches across the body in an extensive network. Vessels weave through tissues, nodes lie tucked along their pathways, and lymphatic organs are positioned strategically where they can most effectively contribute. In this way, the system mirrors the interconnectedness of life itself. No single part operates in isolation. Each vessel, each node, each organ plays its role in the larger whole. To study the lymphatic system is to witness a lesson in cooperation, patience, and balance. As we begin this quiet journey into understanding the lymphatic system, it is helpful to slow the mind and picture its gentle workings. Imagine fluid that has seeped into tissues, carrying with it nutrients, dissolved oxygen, and the byproducts of cellular life. This fluid, now called interstitial fluid, cannot remain where it is, or the tissues would swell and the balance of the internal environment would be lost. So, little by little, it enters the thin-walled lymphatic capillaries. These tiny vessels, almost invisible to the naked eye, open their doors and accept the excess. With simple valves to guide the flow, the fluid begins a long, unhurried journey, now known as lymph. This lymph travels slowly, passing through nodes that examine and cleanse it, before moving onward through larger vessels that eventually return it to the bloodstream. The cycle is complete. What was once excess in the tissues is reintegrated into circulation, maintaining balance in a way so seamless that most of us never give it a thought. Yet if this cycle were to stop, even for a short time, the consequences would become very apparent. Swelling would appear, infections would linger, and the body would struggle to keep its internal environment in harmony. It is precisely this quiet necessity that makes the lymphatic system so fascinating. Unlike the heart, which we can feel pounding in our chest, or the stomach, which we can sense when it hungers, the lymphatic system rarely calls attention to itself. Its work is gentle, its pace unhurried, and its success measured not in dramatic displays, but in the steady preservation of normalcy. It is, in many ways, the embodiment of subtle strength. For centuries, the lymphatic system was overlooked in medical understanding. Ancient physicians noticed swelling of lymph nodes during illness, but did not grasp the full nature of the system. Only in more recent centuries has its extent been mapped, its vessels traced, and its functions clarified. Yet even with modern knowledge, it retains an air of mystery, for it does not shout its presence. Instead, it teaches us that the most vital processes are often the quietest. As we settle into this lecture, imagine the lymphatic system not as a technical diagram, but as a soft flowing network within you, like tiny forest streams weaving through the trees. They carry with them the freshness of balance, clearing debris and nourishing the whole. This imagery is not far from the truth. Just as streams prevent the forest floor from becoming waterlogged, the lymphatic vessels prevent tissues from swelling. Just as streams carry nutrients through the landscape, the lymphatic vessels carry fats absorbed from the digestive system into circulation. And just as streams support the health of the forest by moving life-giving water, the lymphatic system sustains the inner landscape of the body. The more we reflect on this, the more we come to appreciate that life depends as much on the quiet flows as on the dramatic ones. Without the silent labor of the lymphatic system, the body's balance would falter. And so, as you listen, perhaps with your eyes closing and your breath deepening, you may find a parallel between your own calm state and the unhurried workings of this system. It is not a system of urgency, but of patience, not of noise, but of silence. It is there, within you, even now, keeping you in balance as you rest. In this way, our exploration begins not with complexity, but with an appreciation of simplicity. The lymphatic system is a reminder that essential things are often quiet, that support, balance, and resilience may exist unseen, and that the body, in all its intricate design, is guided not just by the obvious rhythms of the heart and breath, but also by the hidden, gentle circulation of lymph. This introduction sets the stage for our deeper exploration. In the parts that follow, we will move slowly, piece by piece, through the structure and function of the lymphatic system. We will see its vessels, its nodes, its organs, and its connections to the rest of the body. And with each step, we will keep in mind that this is not merely a mechanical system, but a living network that mirrors the calm and steady pace of nature itself. 2. What is the lymphatic system? To begin understanding the lymphatic system, it helps to view it not as a separate, isolated mechanism, but as a subtle extension of the body's circulatory and immune networks. While the cardiovascular system moves blood in strong pulses powered by the heart, the lymphatic system moves lymph fluid in quiet streams that weave through nearly every tissue. It has no central pump, no thundering beat, yet it achieves an equally important task: the return of fluid balance and the steady defense of the body against threats. At its simplest, the lymphatic system is a network. This network includes fine capillaries that begin in the tissues, larger vessels that carry fluid along defined pathways, nodes that act as checkpoints, and specialized organs such as the spleen and thymus that support immune functions. The fluid that flows through it is called lymph, a clear or pale liquid that resembles plasma, the watery portion of blood. Unlike blood, however, lymph does not circulate in a closed loop. It begins in the spaces between cells, where excess fluid seeps out from blood capillaries, and then it makes a one-way journey back toward the bloodstream, gathering along the way substances that need to be filtered or managed. This movement of lymph is slow, deliberate, and patient. Each small capillary has thin walls designed to allow fluid to enter with ease. As the fluid collects, it is guided into larger and larger vessels. Within these vessels are valves, similar to those in veins, that prevent the lymph from flowing backward. This ensures that every drop continues its quiet progress toward the veins near the heart, where it rejoins the blood circulation. In this way, the lymphatic system continuously tidies the spaces between cells, preventing the tissues from becoming waterlogged. But the system's purpose extends beyond fluid recovery. As lymph flows, it carries with it a record of the body's internal environment. Bits of proteins, stray cells, fragments of bacteria, and other particles suspended in the fluid all move along with it. This is where the immune role of the lymphatic system comes into focus. At numerous points along the vessels, lymph is filtered through nodes, small, bean-shaped structures filled with immune cells. These nodes are like quiet stations of inspection, examining the passing fluid for anything that does not belong. If harmful agents are detected, immune cells can become active, multiplying, and preparing defenses. Most of the time, however, the nodes remain calm, allowing lymph to continue on its path once it has been gently cleansed. In describing the lymphatic system, it is important to see it as both a drainage network and an immune pathway. Its vessels resemble a second circulatory system, one that parallels the veins. But it is not redundant. Without it, excess fluid would accumulate, swelling would become constant, and infections would spread unchecked. With it, tissues remain balanced, and the immune system maintains a constant watch without needing to search blindly through the vastness of the body. The system also includes organs with specialized functions. The spleen, for example, lies quietly in the upper left abdomen, filtering blood rather than lymph, but it plays a vital role in immunity and in recycling old red blood cells. The thymus, a small gland behind the sternum, trains a class of immune cells called T lymphocytes, preparing them to recognize threats. The tonsils, placed at the entrance of the throat, intercept substances we swallow or inhale. Even the bone marrow, though not usually thought of as a lymphatic organ, contributes by producing the white blood cells that travel through lymph. Together, these elements form a distributed network of guardians, each with a specific role, yet unified in purpose. When we say lymphatic system, then we are speaking of something broad, extending into almost every part of the body. Its vessels lie beside blood vessels in the arms and legs. Its nodes cluster in the neck, armpits, chest, abdomen, and groin. Its organs are positioned in central locations, ensuring they can influence circulation and immunity effectively. To map the lymphatic system is to discover an entire hidden infrastructure within us. one that complements and balances the more familiar structures of blood vessels, nerves, and muscles. What makes this system remarkable is not only its reach but also its manner. Unlike the rapid surges of blood, lymph flows slowly, sometimes requiring hours to complete a cycle. This slowness is not a weakness but a reflection of its purpose. It is not designed for speed but for steady balance, for the careful filtering of fluid, and for the quiet readiness of immune defense. It is a system of patience, working continuously in the background, unnoticed but essential. The word lymph itself comes from the Latin lympha, meaning clear water. This is a fitting image, for lymph truly is like a clear stream moving through the body's tissues, collecting, cleansing, and returning. To imagine the lymphatic system is to picture countless small waterways feeding into larger ones, converging into trunks that eventually pour their contents back into the great river of blood. In this vision, the body becomes a living landscape, with two forms of circulation, one bold and forceful, the other quiet and persistent, working side by side. In essence, then, the lymphatic system is both a physical structure and a gentle guardian. It is composed of vessels, nodes, and organs, but it is also composed of functions: to drain, to filter, to defend, and to sustain. Its role is not flashy, not immediately visible, but its importance cannot be overstated. It is the quiet river that keeps the inner terrain from drowning in excess. It is the sentry that scans the passing stream for hidden dangers. And it is the collaborator, always working in partnership with the cardiovascular and immune systems to preserve harmony. As you reflect on this description, you might sense that the lymphatic system resembles the qualities of calmness itself. It moves without hurry, yet achieves balance. It works without demanding attention, yet provides protection. It is there, within you, always flowing, always watching, always sustaining, whether you are awake or asleep. To recognize its presence is to acknowledge one of the most understated yet essential aspects of human life. With this gentle overview complete, we are ready to look more closely at the details. In the next part, we will follow the flow of lymph itself, tracing its journey from the tissues into the smallest lymphatic capillaries, through the vessels and nodes, and finally, back to the bloodstream. In watching this quiet circulation, we will deepen our appreciation of how the body maintains its inner balance through subtle, patient processes that never cease. 3. The flow of lymph. To understand the lymphatic system more deeply, it is helpful to follow the journey of the fluid that moves through it. This fluid, known as lymph, begins its story in the spaces between the body's cells, a place called the interstitial space. Every moment of life, blood flows through capillaries, delivering oxygen, glucose, amino acids, and other nutrients to tissues. At the same time, plasma, the liquid portion of blood, seeps outward through the fine walls of capillaries, bathing the cells in a nourishing solution. This fluid exchange is necessary for life, yet it creates a challenge. Not all of the fluid that leaves the blood vessels returns directly into them. A small but steady portion lingers in the tissues, carrying with it waste products and cellular debris. If this excess were left unattended, tissues would swell, pressure would build, and the delicate balance of the body's inner environment would be disrupted. It is here that the lymphatic system quietly takes over. Lymphatic capillaries, the smallest vessels of this network, lie close to blood capillaries. Their walls are extremely thin, made of overlapping cells that act like one-way flaps. When tissue fluid builds up, the pressure gently pushes these flaps open, allowing the fluid to slip inside. Once inside, it is no longer called interstitial fluid but lymph. beginning a slow and unbroken journey through the lymphatic system. This is the first step of lymph's flow, a step so quiet and effortless that it occurs without any conscious notice. From these tiny beginnings, the lymph is carried into slightly larger vessels, known as lymphatic collecting vessels. These resemble small veins but have thinner walls and a greater number of valves. The valves ensure that lymph always moves in one direction, toward the heart. Because there is no heart-like pump for lymph, the movement is guided instead by the natural contractions of nearby muscles, the rhythmic expansion and contraction of the lungs during breathing, and even the faint pulsations of surrounding arteries. Every time you walk, stretch, or breathe deeply, you are helping your lymph move forward. In this way, the system is intimately connected with the simple act of living and moving. As lymph travels through these vessels, it encounters small checkpoints called lymph nodes. These nodes, scattered by the hundreds throughout the body, act as both filters and guardians. Within them, immune cells quietly wait, ready to identify bacteria, viruses, or abnormal cells that may be carried in the fluid. If the lymph contains such intruders, the immune cells can respond, multiplying and preparing defenses. Most of the time, however, the fluid passes through calmly, cleansed, and allowed to continue on its path. In this way, the flow of lymph is not only about movement but also about inspection, a constant monitoring of the inner environment. After passing through one or more nodes, lymph continues into larger vessels that gradually merge into two main channels: the right lymphatic duct and the thoracic duct. The right lymphatic duct drains fluid from the right upper portion of the body, the right arm, the right side of the head, and the right side of the chest. The thoracic duct, by contrast, is much larger and serves the rest of the body, carrying lymph from the left arm, left side of the head, chest, abdomen, and both legs. These ducts represent the final major pathways of lymph before it rejoins the bloodstream. At the end of its journey, the lymph enters the venous system near the heart, specifically at the junction of the subclavian and internal jugular veins. In this way, the fluid that once seeped into tissues, carrying nutrients and collecting waste, is returned to the circulation. The cycle is complete: blood to tissues, tissues to lymph, lymph back to blood. The body's internal environment is kept in balance, not by chance, but by this steady circulation. The flow of lymph is slow, often requiring many hours to complete its passage through the vessels and nodes. This slowness is not a flaw, but a reflection of purpose. Lymph is meant to be carefully filtered, to give immune cells the time they need to examine it, and to ensure that excess fluid is returned gently rather than suddenly. This unhurried pace also mirrors the qualities of rest and calm. Just as one can breathe deeply and feel at ease, the lymphatic system moves without haste, sustaining balance with patience. Another important aspect of this flow is its role in transporting not only fluid but also substances absorbed from the digestive system. Specialized lymphatic capillaries in the intestines, called lacteals, absorb dietary fats and fat-soluble vitamins. These nutrients, carried in lymph, eventually join the bloodstream, becoming available for energy and growth. In this way, the flow of lymph contributes not just to fluid balance and immunity, but also to nutrition. When we imagine the flow of lymph, it can be helpful to picture it as a quiet river system. The interstitial fluid seeps like rainwater into small rivulets, the lymphatic capillaries. These rivulets join into streams, the collecting vessels, each guarded by nodes like watchtowers along the banks. The streams merge into great rivers, the thoracic and right lymphatic ducts, which finally empty into the ocean of blood circulation. Throughout the journey, the flow is steady, unhurried, and deeply essential. This flow is also influenced by posture and movement. When a person is active, walking or stretching, lymph tends to flow more easily, assisted by the motion of muscles. When one is still, the flow continues, though more slowly, relying on the subtle movements of breathing and the body's natural rhythms. Even sleep supports the flow, as the gentle expansion of the lungs during each breath encourages the movement of lymph. In this way, the system is never fully at rest, always carrying on its work quietly in the background. The importance of this continuous circulation becomes clear when it is disrupted. If lymph cannot drain properly, fluid builds up in tissues, causing swelling known as lymphedema. This condition reminds us that the quiet flow we often ignore is actually essential for comfort and function. Similarly, when infections occur, lymph nodes may swell as they fill with active immune cells. This is another reminder that the nodes are not just passive filters, but living centers of defense, directly tied to the flow of lymph. In reflecting on the flow of lymph, one may find a sense of peace in its constancy. It does not rush, it does not demand, it simply continues, sustaining balance without pause. To listen inwardly, one might imagine this quiet river flowing within, moving patiently from the tissues back to the heart, always working, always cleansing. It is a reminder that the body is cared for not only by the dramatic beats of the heart and the deep breaths of the lungs, but also by the subtle, nearly invisible work of the lymphatic system. As we move forward in this journey, we will take a closer look at the structures that make this flow possible. In the next part, we will turn our attention to the lymphatic vessels themselves, exploring their structure, their valves, and their unique role in sustaining this gentle circulation. 4. The lymphatic vessels. The lymphatic vessels are the quiet highways of the lymphatic system, carrying lymph fluid on its slow journey back to the bloodstream. They resemble the veins of the circulatory system in both structure and purpose, yet they have qualities that make them distinct. To understand them is to appreciate how the body manages to guide fluid without a pump, relying instead on design, patience, and the natural movements of life itself. The story of these vessels begins with the smallest of them all, the lymphatic capillaries. These are tiny, delicate tubes found throughout the body, woven among the tissues and lying close to blood capillaries. Their walls are composed of a single layer of overlapping endothelial cells. Unlike the tightly joined walls of blood vessels, the cells of lymphatic capillaries act more like loose shingles on a roof. When the pressure of fluid in the tissues builds, these shingles gently separate, creating small gaps that allow fluid to enter. Once the fluid is inside, the overlap closes again, preventing it from leaking back out. This clever design ensures that interstitial fluid is steadily collected, beginning its transformation into lymph. As the lymphatic capillaries gather fluid, they gradually merge into larger collecting vessels. These vessels are similar in appearance to small veins, but are even thinner and more transparent. One of their defining features is the presence of numerous valves, which appear as gentle constrictions along their length. These valves act like gates, permitting the lymph to flow in one direction only. If the fluid tries to move backward, the valves close, holding it in place until the next forward movement. This simple but effective mechanism ensures that, despite the lack of a central pump, lymph always progresses toward the heart. The movement itself is achieved through cooperation with the body's natural rhythms. Every contraction of a nearby skeletal muscle presses gently on the vessels, squeezing them and pushing the fluid along. Each deep breath expands and contracts the chest cavity, creating changes in pressure that encourage lymph to flow upward through the thoracic duct. Even the faint pulsing of arteries, lying close beside lymphatic vessels, provides a subtle push that helps the lymph move. In this way, the vessels are not independent but part of a shared rhythm with the rest of the body, Every step, every stretch, every breath contributes to the flow. As the collecting vessels progress, they pass through lymph nodes, which are interspersed along their length. At these points, the vessels narrow, and the lymph must slow as it enters the node. Here, immune cells stand ready, filtering the fluid and removing anything harmful. Once the inspection is complete, the lymph leaves the node through efferent vessels and continues its journey. In this way, the vessels are not just highways but also pathways punctuated with stations of security. The collecting vessels eventually merge into larger trunks. Each trunk drains a specific region of the body. The jugular trunks drain the head and neck. The subclavian trunks collect from the arms. The bronchomediastinal trunks drain the chest. The intestinal trunk gathers from the digestive organs. And the lumbar trunks collect from the lower body. These trunks represent major routes, channeling lymph from broad regions into two final destinations: the right lymphatic duct and the thoracic duct. The right lymphatic duct is relatively short, about 1 centimeter in length. It drains lymph from the right arm, the right side of the head, and the right side of the chest, emptying into the right subclavian vein. The thoracic duct, by contrast, is the great highway of the system. It begins in the abdomen at a small sac-like structure called the cisterna chyli, which collects lymph from the intestines and lower body. From there, it ascends through the chest, passing behind the heart and lungs, before emptying into the left subclavian vein near the neck. This duct carries lymph from the rest of the body: the left arm, the left side of the head, the chest, the abdomen, and both legs. In this way, the thoracic duct serves as the main channel through which most of the body's lymph returns to the blood. The vessels themselves are not merely passive tubes. Their walls contain a thin layer of smooth muscle that contracts rhythmically, a process known as lymphangion contraction. Each segment of a vessel between two valves is called a lymphangion, and it functions almost like a tiny pump. When the smooth muscle contracts, it squeezes the lymph forward, and the valve prevents backflow. This built-in activity adds to the movement provided by muscles, breathing, and arterial pulses, ensuring that lymph continues to flow even when the body is at rest. Despite this elegant design, the flow of lymph is gentle and slow. Unlike blood, which rushes through arteries at great speed, lymph moves at the pace of quiet streams. This slowness allows thorough filtering at the nodes, unhurried absorption of fats in the intestines, and careful return of fluid to the bloodstream. It is a system that values patience over speed, balance over force. When one considers the vessels of the lymphatic system, it is easy to see them as hidden rivers, coursing through the landscape of the body. They begin as small trickles in the tissues, merge into streams as they pass through nodes, and finally flow together into broad rivers that join the bloodstream. Their valves are like stepping stones, ensuring that the current always moves forward. Their cooperation with breathing and movement reflects the interconnectedness of the body, where no system works alone, but each lends its rhythm to another. Problems can arise when these vessels are blocked or damaged. If lymph cannot pass through, fluid accumulates in tissues, causing swelling. This is most often seen in the arms or legs, a condition known as lymphedema. Infections can also travel through the vessels, sometimes causing painful swelling of nodes. Yet even in these cases, the underlying design of the system remains clear. It is built to manage the body's internal environment with quiet persistence. The vessels of the lymphatic system may be invisible to the casual eye, but their presence is constant. They stretch across the body like hidden threads, tying together the tissues, balancing fluids, and guiding immune defenses. In reflecting on their role, one is reminded of how much of life depends not on what is loud or obvious, but on what is subtle and unseen. As our exploration continues, we will turn our attention to the lymph nodes themselves. These small, bean-shaped structures are far more than checkpoints. They are hubs of immunity, places where the body learns to recognize threats and prepares its defense. In the next part, imagining the quiet but essential work that happens within them every moment of life. 5. The lymph nodes. The lymph nodes are among the most important features of the lymphatic system, though they are small and often unnoticed until they swell during illness. Scattered along the network of vessels like beads on a string, they serve as both filters and gathering places for immune cells. Their role is quiet but vital. They protect the body by watching over the lymph, carefully screening it for any sign of trouble, and responding when needed. To appreciate their importance, we must imagine both their structure and their patient function. Each lymph node is small, often no larger than a pea or bean. They are nestled in clusters at strategic points throughout the body, along the sides of the neck, in the armpits, in the chest, in the abdomen. These locations are not random but carefully placed where lymph from large regions of the body converges. By being positioned at these intersections, the nodes can monitor and filter fluid from entire areas before it returns to the bloodstream. Structurally, a lymph node is encased in a capsule of connective tissue, a protective outer shell that gives it shape. Inside, the node is divided into compartments by delicate strands called trabeculae. These compartments create a framework that supports the living cells within. The interior of the node is filled with a reticular mesh, a fine web of fibers that forms both scaffolding and pathway for immune cells to move through. This structure gives the node its sponge-like consistency, allowing fluid to percolate while cells patrol. The flow of lymph through a node is carefully organized. Lymph enters through several small vessels called afferent lymphatics. Once inside, it travels slowly through sinuses channels that wind through the mesh of the node. Along these sinuses are macrophages, large immune cells that act as guardians, engulfing debris, dead cells, or bacteria carried in the fluid. The lymph then moves deeper into the cortex of the node, where clusters of B lymphocytes reside. These cells are part of the adaptive immune system, capable of producing antibodies if they encounter a recognizable threat. In the deeper region, called the paracortex, T lymphocytes dominate. These cells are trained to identify and respond to infected or abnormal cells, providing another layer of defense. Finally, the filtered lymph collects in the medulla, the inner portion of the node, before leaving through efferent vessels at a slower pace than when it entered. This slowing of flow is deliberate and essential. By forcing lymph to linger within the node, the body ensures that immune cells have time to examine it thoroughly. If foreign material is detected, the cells become activated. B cells may begin to multiply and form structures known as germinal centers, where antibodies are produced. T cells may divide rapidly, preparing to leave the node and travel through the bloodstream to sites of infection. In this way, the lymph node functions as both a filter and a command post, gathering intelligence from the passing fluid and launching a response when necessary. Under normal conditions, this work happens quietly and without notice. The nodes remain small, soft, and hidden, silently filtering liters of lymph each day. But during illness, their activity becomes visible. When an infection is present, the immune cells within the node multiply, causing the node to swell and sometimes become tender. This swelling, often felt in the neck or under the jaw during a cold or sore throat, is a sign that the body's defenses are actively engaged. It is a reminder that these small organs, usually unnoticed, are in fact powerful centers of protection. Lymph nodes are not evenly distributed but occur in groups. Cervical nodes lie along the neck, monitoring lymph from the head and throat. Axillary nodes cluster in the armpits, filtering lymph from the arms and chest. In the abdomen, mesenteric nodes line the intestines, examining fluid from the digestive system. In the groin, inguinal nodes screen lymph from the legs. This regional arrangement ensures that no part of the body is left unmonitored. Everywhere that lymph flows, it passes through at least one, often several, nodes before rejoining the bloodstream. The presence of so many nodes, estimates range from 500 to 700 in the human body, illustrates just how central their role is. Each one is a small checkpoint, but together they form a vast network of surveillance. They are like watchtowers spread across a landscape, each covering its area but also communicating with others, ensuring that the entire territory remains under observation. The nodes also serve an important role in teaching the immune system. During early life, they are sites where immune cells encounter harmless substances and learn to distinguish self from non-self. This training helps prevent the body from mistakenly attacking its own tissues. In this way, the nodes are not only guardians but also teachers, shaping the immune system into a balanced and discerning defender. The design of the lymph node, with its capsule, sinuses, and compartments, may seem simple, yet it is remarkably effective. By guiding lymph through a slow and deliberate path, it maximizes the chances that harmful material will be caught and destroyed. By housing both B and T lymphocytes, it ensures that multiple lines of defense are available. And by linking to other nodes in a chain, it creates redundancy, so that even if one node misses something, another may catch it. When reflecting on lymph nodes, it is worth noticing their balance of silence and strength. Most of the time, they are invisible to our awareness, hidden beneath skin and muscle, quietly performing their work. But when called upon, they expand, mobilize cells, and respond with vigor. They are reminders that much of the body's protection happens without our notice, in places we rarely feel or see, yet always in service of balance and health. As we continue our journey through the lymphatic system, we will leave these small but powerful nodes and turn our attention to one of the largest organs in the system, the spleen. Unlike the nodes, which filter lymph, the spleen filters blood. It performs similar tasks of defense and cleansing, but on a larger scale and with unique roles of its own. In the next part, we will explore the spleen and its quiet but indispensable place within this network of guardians. 6. The spleen. Among the organs of the lymphatic system, the spleen stands out as the largest, and yet, like the rest of this quiet network, it works in silence. It does not beat like the heart, it does not draw breath like the lungs, and it does not announce itself with hunger pangs like the stomach. Instead, it rests quietly in the upper left side of the abdomen, just beneath the rib cage, behind the stomach, and next to the diaphragm. Protected and cushioned by these surrounding structures, the spleen carries out its duties in a steady rhythm, filtering blood, supporting immunity, and maintaining balance in ways that often escape notice until something goes wrong. The spleen is about the size of a fist in most adults, soft and spongy to the touch, with a rich supply of blood vessels entering and leaving through a region known as the hilum. Its reddish color comes from the abundance of blood that flows through it, for unlike the lymph nodes, which filter lymph, the spleen's primary function is to filter blood itself. In this way, it serves as a guardian of the circulatory system, ensuring that the bloodstream remains clean and healthy. Inside the spleen, there are two distinct regions known as red pulp and white pulp. These names reflect their appearance under the microscope, but they also reveal the two main functions of the organ. The red pulp makes up the majority of the spleen and is devoted to filtering old or damaged red blood cells. Every second of life, millions of red blood cells circulate through the body, carrying oxygen to tissues. But each cell has a limited lifespan, about 120 days, after which it must be removed and recycled. The spleen takes on this task quietly and efficiently. In the sinuses of the red pulp, aging or fragile red blood cells are identified and broken down. Their useful components, such as iron, are salvaged and returned to circulation, ready to be reused in the creation of new cells. The remainder is discarded, keeping the bloodstream free of ineffective cells. Alongside this recycling function, the red pulp also serves as a reservoir for blood. In certain animals, the spleen can release this stored blood during times of sudden need, such as intense exercise or blood loss. In humans, this capacity is more modest, but the principle remains. The spleen is not just a filter, but also a reserve, holding resources that may be called upon in times of stress. The white pulp, by contrast, is dedicated to immunity. It consists of clusters of lymphocytes, both B cells and T cells, arranged around branches of the splenic artery. As blood flows through these regions, it is exposed to the watchful gaze of immune cells. If bacteria, viruses, or abnormal cells are detected, the lymphocytes can become activated, producing antibodies or coordinating an immune response. In this way, the spleen acts as both a filter and a sentinel, cleansing the blood not only of old cells, but also of potential threats. This dual role of red pulp and white pulp illustrates the harmony of the spleen's function: recycling and defense, maintenance and protection. It is a balance that reflects the larger theme of the lymphatic system itself, a quiet, patient commitment to keeping the body in equilibrium. The spleen also plays a role in early life that gradually diminishes with age. In the developing fetus, before the bone marrow fully matures, the spleen is one of the main sites of blood cell production. Red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets are formed here, ensuring that the growing body has the resources it needs. After birth, this function shifts primarily to the bone marrow, and the spleen becomes more specialized in filtration and immune surveillance. Still, this developmental role is a reminder that the spleen has always been central to sustaining life, from the earliest stages onward. Although the spleen performs such vital work, it is not an organ we feel or notice in daily life. Most people are unaware of it unless illness or injury brings it to attention. Certain infections, such as mononucleosis, can cause the spleen to swell, making it tender or prone to rupture. In rare cases, the spleen must be removed surgically, a procedure known as splenectomy. When this occurs, other organs such as the liver and bone marrow can take over some of its functions, but the body is left more vulnerable to certain infections. This underscores how valuable the spleen truly is, even if it can be lived without. It is a quiet guardian whose absence is only fully felt when it is gone. In reflecting on the spleen, it is helpful to picture it as a sanctuary for blood. Rivers of blood flow through its chambers, where cells are gently tested for age and integrity. Those that are still strong are allowed to continue, while those that have grown fragile are set aside, broken down, and renewed. At the same time, immune sentinels patrol the streams, alert to any unwelcome intruders. It is a place of both recycling and vigilance, where the life of the blood is sustained. The spleen's location in the body adds to its symbolism. Nestled quietly under the ribs, it is protected, almost hidden, as if nature understood that its delicate work required shelter. Its softness and vulnerability contrast with the strength of bone and muscle around it. This contrast is a reminder that even the most vital functions often rest on the most delicate foundations. When seen in the broader context of the lymphatic system, the spleen is one of the keystones. It works alongside lymph nodes, thymus, and bone marrow to maintain health, each organ contributing its own piece to the puzzle. Together, they form a web of protection, a distributed defense that covers the body in silence. As we continue our journey, we leave the spleen in its quiet work and turn to another organ of the lymphatic system, the thymus. Though small and often overlooked, the thymus is the training ground for a critical part of the immune system. It is where T cells, so central to defense, learn to recognize threats and to distinguish between what belongs to the body and what does not. In the next part, we will explore the thymus, its role in childhood and early life, and the way it sets the stage for immunity across a lifetime. 7. The thymus. The thymus is one of the more mysterious organs of the lymphatic system. Unlike the spleen or the lymph nodes, which remain active throughout life, the thymus has its greatest influence during childhood and adolescence. After this period, it gradually shrinks, becoming smaller and less prominent, until in adulthood it is little more than a shadow of what it once was. Yet its early contributions leave a lasting imprint, for it is here that a crucial part of the immune system, the T lymphocytes, or T cells, receive their training. The thymus sits in the chest, just behind the sternum, nestled between the lungs and above the heart. Though modest in size, particularly in adults, it is strategically placed near the great vessels that carry blood in and out of the heart. This central location allows it to interact with the developing immune system during the earliest years of life, when defenses must be prepared for the wide world beyond the womb. In infants and children, the thymus is relatively large compared to body size, soft and pinkish gray in color, with 2 lobes surrounded by a thin capsule. Inside, it is organized into smaller lobules, each divided into an outer cortex and an inner medulla. The cortex is densely packed with immature T cells, also called thymocytes, along with supporting epithelial cells that guide their development. The medulla, less crowded, is where maturing T cells are tested before they are allowed to leave and join the rest of the immune system. The work of the thymus is often described as education. T cells begin their life in the bone marrow, like all blood cells, but they are not yet equipped to defend the body. They migrate to the thymus, where they undergo a process of selection that shapes their abilities. In the cortex, thymocytes multiply and rearrange their receptors, the molecular tools they will use to recognize foreign particles. At this stage, many do not survive, for their receptors may not function properly, or may fail to recognize the body's own signaling molecules. Those that do succeed continue into the medulla, where they face a second and even stricter test. Here, they must prove that they can distinguish between self and non-self. In other words, they must be able to recognize the body's own tissues as safe and foreign invaders as dangerous. Those that mistake self for enemy are eliminated, while those that succeed are allowed to leave the thymus and enter the circulation. This process is vital, for without it, the immune system would attack the body's own cells, leading to autoimmune disease. The thymus, then, is not just a factory for T cells, but a careful teacher, ensuring that only those cells with the right balance of recognition and restraint are released. The numbers involved in this process are striking. It is estimated that the vast majority of T cells generated in the thymus, up to 95%, do not survive the selection process. Only a small fraction pass the tests and graduate into full immune defenders. This high attrition may seem wasteful, but it ensures that the cells that do leave are finely tuned to their purpose. Those that emerge are ready to travel through the lymphatic system and the bloodstream, prepared to respond to infections, cancers, and other threats for the rest of life. With the passing of years, the thymus gradually changes. By adolescence, it begins to shrink, its active tissue replaced by fat and connective tissue in a process called involution. By middle age, it is only a fraction of its original size, and by old age, it may be difficult to distinguish from the surrounding tissue at all. Yet the immune system remains functional, for the T cells trained in childhood continue to circulate and reproduce themselves, carrying forward the lessons learned in the thymus. In this way, the thymus shapes the immune system for a lifetime, even though its peak activity is early and temporary. This unusual pattern has long fascinated scientists. Why should an organ so important diminish so early in life? Some suggest that it is a trade-off, conserving energy once the immune system is established. Others see it as a reflection of evolution, where early life survival is most critical. Whatever the reason, the thymus remains a symbol of how early foundations can sustain long-term resilience. The thymus also produces hormones, including thymosin, which influence the development and activity of lymphocytes. These chemical signals guide T cells during their training and help regulate the broader immune system. Though subtle, these hormonal contributions add another layer to the thymus's influence, reminding us that it is not only a physical site of education, but also a signaling center. When imagining the thymus, it is useful to picture it as a quiet school within the chest. Young lymphocytes arrive, unformed and untested. They enter classrooms in the cortex, where they begin to develop their skills. Many falter, unable to meet the requirements, and are set aside. Others progress into the medulla, where the final examinations take place. Only those that demonstrate wisdom, the ability to recognize what is foreign without attacking what is self, are allowed to graduate. These successful students then leave the school, traveling out into the body to serve as guardians for decades to come. The thymus rarely draws attention in daily life. Unlike lymph nodes, which swell during infection, or the spleen, which may enlarge during illness, the thymus remains hidden and silent. Most people are unaware of its presence at all. Yet it represents a fundamental truth about the lymphatic system, that much of its work happens unseen, shaping the conditions for health without demanding notice. As we move from the thymus, we come next to the tonsils and adenoids, small clusters of lymphatic tissue that stand at the gates of the throat. Unlike the thymus, which acts early in life and then retreats, the tonsils remain active throughout, quietly intercepting what we breathe and swallow, protecting us at the very entrance of the body. In the next part, we will explore these guardians of the throat, their structure, and their subtle contributions to immunity. 8. The tonsils and adenoids. As the lymphatic system extends its quiet network of protection throughout the body, some of its most strategic outposts are located at the very entrances where the outside world meets the inside. Among these are the tonsils and the adenoids, small clusters of lymphatic tissue that serve as gatekeepers of the throat, while the spleen filters blood deep within the abdomen, and the lymph nodes filter lymph flowing through vessels. The tonsils and adenoids stand at the openings of the respiratory and digestive tracts, quietly defending against what we breathe in and what we swallow. They are the body's first line of surveillance in places where foreign particles are most likely to enter. The tonsils are not a single structure, but a set of three main groups arranged in a protective ring at the back of the throat, often referred to as Waldeyer's ring. The palatine tonsils are the most familiar, positioned on either side of the throat and visible when the mouth is open wide. The lingual tonsils lie at the base of the tongue, while the pharyngeal tonsils, more commonly called adenoids, are located high in the back of the nasal cavity where the throat meets the nose. Together, they create a ring of lymphoid tissue that silently inspects air, food, and drink as they pass by. Structurally, The tonsils and adenoids resemble lymph nodes, though they are not encapsulated in quite the same way. Their tissue is rich with lymphocytes, both B cells and T cells, as well as macrophages that can engulf invaders. The surface of the tonsils is covered with folds and crypts, small channels that increase surface area and trap particles. When bacteria or viruses become lodged in these crypts, immune cells are alerted, and a response is mounted. This can cause the tonsils to swell or become sore, as happens during common infections like tonsillitis. Yet even in these uncomfortable moments, the tonsils are performing their intended role, intercepting threats before they spread deeper into the body. The adenoids, though not visible without special instruments, play a similar role at the back of the nasal passage. They are especially active in young children, when the immune system is still developing and encountering countless new microbes. Over time, like the thymus, the adenoids gradually shrink, often becoming small or even disappearing in adulthood. Yet in early life, they stand as vigilant guards at one of the most vulnerable points of entry, examining every breath that passes through the nose. The function of these tissues is subtle but essential. By encountering foreign particles early, the tonsils and adenoids help train the immune system to recognize and respond. When pathogens are identified, lymphocytes multiply, antibodies are produced, and memory cells are created that will respond more quickly in the future. In this way, these structures are not just barriers but teachers, shaping the immune system's ability to distinguish friend from foe. It is not uncommon for the tonsils and adenoids to become inflamed, especially in childhood. Repeated infections can cause them to enlarge, leading to sore throats, difficulty swallowing, or blocked nasal passages. In some cases, removal of the tonsils or adenoids becomes necessary, particularly if their enlargement interferes with breathing or sleep. Yet even when removed, the body retains other lymphatic tissues that continue to provide defense. This redundancy reflects a principle seen throughout the lymphatic system. No single structure carries the entire burden, but rather each contributes to a larger network of protection. To imagine the tonsils and adenoids, picture them as watchful guards stationed at the gateways of a castle. They are the first to see what enters, sounding the alarm if danger is detected. Most of the time, the traffic is harmless, ordinary food, clean air, familiar substances. But when an invader tries to slip through, the guards act quickly, alerting the entire network to respond. In this way, they maintain the safety of the body's interior, often before we are even aware of the intrusion. The symbolism of their placement is striking. At the point where the outer world meets the inner world, the body has chosen to position some of its strongest immune sentinels. Every swallow, every breath, every spoken word passes by these small organs. They work without effort on our part, without sound or sensation, unless they become inflamed. And even then, the discomfort is a sign of their activity, a reminder that they are standing guard at the edge of our being. The tonsils and adenoids also remind us that the immune system is not only reactive but also adaptive. Each encounter, each exposure, builds memory and strengthens resilience. The tissues themselves may shrink with age, but the lessons they help teach remain, carried forward by the immune cells that once trained there. In this sense, their influence lasts long after their physical presence has diminished. As we reflect on these guardians of the throat, we can appreciate how seamlessly the lymphatic system integrates with the rest of the body. It is not confined to hidden vessels and deep organs, but reaches outward, positioning itself where it is most needed, at the thresholds between the external world and the inner self. From here, our journey moves deeper once again, to the hidden spaces within bone. In the next part, we will explore the bone marrow, the birthplace of lymphocytes, and other blood cells. It is here that the story of the immune system truly begins, in the quiet chambers of marrow that sustain the continuous renewal of life's defenders. 9. Bone marrow and lymph production. Deep within the bones of the body lies a soft, living tissue that is often overlooked because it is hidden from view. This tissue is bone marrow, and it is one of the most important sites of life's renewal. While bones may appear solid and unchanging, their interiors are filled with a delicate, spongy substance that continuously generates the cells that sustain life. It is here that red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets are born, and it is here that the story of the lymphatic system truly begins. For among these cells are the lymphocytes, the immune guardians that populate lymph nodes, spleen, thymus, and tonsils. Without bone marrow, there would be no lymphatic system at all, for it is the source from which its defenders arise. Bone marrow exists in two main forms, red marrow and yellow marrow. In infants and young children, most of the marrow is red, actively engaged in producing blood cells. As the body grows, some of this red marrow gradually transforms into yellow marrow, which is richer in fat and less active in blood cell production. By adulthood, red marrow is primarily found in the flat bones such as the sternum, ribs, pelvis, and skull, and in the ends of long bones like the femur. These locations are the body's factories of renewal, continuously supplying the blood with new cells. The process of creating blood cells is called hematopoiesis. Within the red marrow are stem cells, primitive cells with the remarkable ability to develop into many different types of blood cells. Some of these stem cells become red blood cells, carrying oxygen through the body. Others become platelets, assisting in clotting and repair. Still others become white blood cells, the diverse family of immune defenders. It is within this last group that we find the lymphocytes, the B cells and T cells that form the core of the lymphatic system's protection. B lymphocytes, or B cells, complete their development within the bone marrow itself. They learn to recognize antigens, the molecular signatures of foreign particles, and to produce antibodies that can neutralize invaders. Once mature, they travel through the bloodstream and settle in lymph nodes, spleen, and other lymphoid tissues, ready to respond when called upon. T lymphocytes, by contrast, leave the bone marrow while still immature and migrate to the thymus, where they undergo their specialized training. In this way, the marrow and thymus form a partnership. One gives birth to the cells, the other teaches them how to defend. The production of these cells is continuous and finely balanced. Each day, billions of new blood cells are created to replace those that have aged or been lost. Red blood cells wear out after about 120 days, platelets after about 10 days, and some white blood cells after only a few hours. Without the constant renewal provided by the marrow, the body would quickly become depleted. It is a quiet but ceaseless rhythm of life, a reminder that renewal is woven into the very fabric of being. Bone marrow also plays a role in storing energy and supporting the skeleton. The yellow marrow, rich in fat, serves as a reserve that can be converted back to red marrow if the body is under severe stress and requires increased blood cell production. This adaptability highlights the resilience of the system, always prepared to shift its balance to meet the needs of survival. When we think of bone marrow in the context of the lymphatic system, its role is foundational. Every lymphocyte, every immune response, begins here. The lymph nodes, spleen, thymus, and tonsils may be the sites where battles are fought and defenses are mounted, but the marrow is where the soldiers are born. It is the hidden cradle of immunity, silently generating the cells that will spend their lives protecting the body. The importance of bone marrow becomes especially clear when it falters. Certain diseases, such as leukemia or aplastic anemia, disrupt the marrow's ability to produce healthy cells. In these cases, immunity weakens, oxygen delivery declines, and clotting becomes impaired. Treatments such as bone marrow transplants are sometimes required, in which healthy stem cells are introduced to restore the process of renewal. These interventions highlight just how central the marrow is to life, and how dependent the body is on its quiet work. Though hidden, the marrow can be imagined as a vast, living garden inside the bones. Stem cells are like seeds, each with the potential to grow into something vital. The garden is carefully tended, ensuring that the right balance of cells is produced each day. Some grow into the oxygen bearers, others into the healers of wounds, and still others into the guardians of the lymphatic system. The garden never rests, for life itself depends on its constant cultivation. When considering the lymphatic system as a whole, bone marrow may seem distant, tucked away inside bones, rather than actively filtering fluid or intercepting invaders. Yet it is the origin point, the root from which the rest of the system grows. Every immune response, every defense against infection, every act of balance begins with cells born in the marrow. Without this quiet cradle, the body would have no defenders at all. As we close this reflection on the marrow, it is clear that the lymphatic system is not only about circulation and filtration, but also about creation. It is about the continual birth of cells that will dedicate themselves to preserving health. From the hidden chambers of bone, life's defenders emerge, setting forth on journeys that will take them into nodes, spleen, thymus, and beyond. In the next part of our journey, we will follow these lymphocytes as they take on their roles in immunity. We will see how the lymphatic system serves as a highway for immune cells, a meeting place for responses, and a vigilant watchtower guarding the body against harm. Through this, we will come to appreciate the lymphatic system not only as a regulator of fluid balance, but also as one of the body's greatest guardians. 10. Lymph and immunity. The lymphatic system is more than a drainage network for excess fluid. It is also a central pathway for immunity, a living defense system that quietly patrols the body. Through its vessels and nodes, it provides a continuous line of surveillance, allowing immune cells to move, meet, and respond. In this way, the lymphatic system is not only about balance, it is about protection. To explore this role, we must follow the journey of lymph as it flows through tissues and encounters the immune cells that guard the body from harm. Every drop of lymph that enters a lymphatic capillary carries with it a record of the tissues it has passed through. Floating within it may be fragments of proteins, particles of bacteria, or even whole cells that have slipped into the fluid. As the lymph flows through vessels and into nodes, it delivers these traces to waiting immune cells. This process allows the immune system to sample the body continuously, receiving constant updates about its state of health. Without this steady flow of information, the immune system would be like a guard blindfolded, unable to know what dangers might be present. The main defenders within this system are the lymphocytes, B cells, and T cells, born in the bone marrow and trained in different ways. B cells specialize in producing antibodies, proteins that recognize and bind to foreign invaders. These antibodies circulate through the blood and lymph, marking bacteria and viruses for destruction, or neutralizing them directly. T cells, by contrast, focus on recognizing infected or abnormal cells. Some T cells act as helpers, coordinating responses and activating other immune cells, while others act as killers, destroying cells that have been compromised. Together, B and T cells provide a defense that is both broad and precise. Within lymph nodes, these cells wait patiently, surrounded by the slow flow of lymph. If the fluid contains a recognizable pathogen, the immune cells spring into action. B cells may begin dividing rapidly, forming clusters called germinal centers, where antibodies are produced in great numbers. These antibodies then enter the lymph and bloodstream, spreading throughout the body to neutralize the threat. T cells, once activated, also multiply and prepare to travel, leaving the node to find and destroy infected cells wherever they may be. What begins as a quiet inspection within a small node can quickly become a coordinated defense across the entire body. Macrophages and dendritic cells, another class of immune sentinels, play a supporting role. They engulf debris and pathogens carried in the lymph, breaking them down into fragments. These fragments are then displayed on their surfaces, like flags, to signal to lymphocytes what kind of invader has been found. In this way, the lymphatic system functions not only as a filter, but also as a communication network, passing information from one type of immune cell to another. The importance of lymph in immunity can also be seen in the way it transports cells. Immune cells do not remain fixed in one place but travel constantly through lymph and blood, circulating between nodes, tissues, and organs. This circulation ensures that defenses are spread evenly and can be concentrated where needed. For example, if a skin wound allows bacteria to enter, lymph from the injured area carries the invaders into nearby nodes. Immune cells in those nodes activate, and soon waves of defenders arrive at the site of injury, guided by chemical signals. The lymphatic system thus serves as both highway and messenger, carrying defenders to where they are most needed. One of the remarkable qualities of this system is its ability to learn. Each encounter with a pathogen leaves behind memory cells, specialized B and T cells, that remember the invader's unique features. If the same pathogen appears again, these memory cells respond much more quickly and effectively. This is the basis of long-term immunity and also the reason vaccines work. By presenting the immune system with a harmless version of a pathogen, the lymphatic system can prepare defenses in advance. In this way, lymph and immunity are not just reactive but adaptive, building resilience with every experience. Yet even in its power, the lymphatic system maintains balance. It must defend against harmful invaders without turning against the body's own tissues. This delicate task depends on the training of T cells in the thymus and the regulation within nodes and marrow. When this balance falters, autoimmune conditions can arise, in which the immune system mistakes self for enemy. The lymphatic system reminds us that true defense requires not only strength but also discernment. The lymphatic system also plays a role in detecting and managing abnormal cells, such as those that may become cancerous. Immune cells moving through lymph nodes are capable of identifying cells that display unusual markers, targeting them before they spread. In this way, the lymphatic system is a watchtower not only against infection, but also against internal threats. To imagine the role of lymph in immunity, one might picture a quiet river carrying messages downstream. Along its banks, sentinels stand ready, scanning the current for signs of danger. Most days, the water flows peacefully, carrying only the ordinary traces of life. But when something unusual drifts past, the sentinels signal one another, and the calm river becomes the channel of a rapid and coordinated defense. The flow itself is unchanged, but its meaning has shifted, carrying urgency as well as balance. This constant surveillance happens without our awareness. Even as we rest, sleep, or go about our lives, lymph is flowing, immune cells are watching, and defenses are prepared. It is a system of vigilance that requires no conscious thought, a reminder that the body sustains itself in ways both visible and invisible. As we move deeper into this exploration, the next step is to look at one of the lymphatic system's most fundamental tasks beyond immunity: the maintenance of fluid balance. While immunity protects against infection, fluid balance preserves the very environment in which cells live. In the next part, we will explore how the lymphatic system quietly returns excess fluid to the blood, preventing swelling and keeping tissues nourished in perfect equilibrium. 11. Lymphatic system and fluid balance. The human body is a place of constant exchange. Every moment, blood flows through capillaries, releasing oxygen, nutrients, and water into the surrounding tissues. The cells absorb what they need, use what they can, and return some substances back into the fluid around them. This exchange is what sustains life, but it also creates a challenge. Not all of the fluid that leaves the blood vessels returns. A portion of it lingers in the tissues, carrying with it waste products, proteins, and other particles. If left unchecked, this excess fluid would build up, causing swelling, pressure, and imbalance. It is here, in the quiet management of this overflow, that the lymphatic system reveals one of its most essential roles. Preserving fluid balance, the lymphatic system collects the fluid that seeps out of blood capillaries, a substance known as interstitial fluid, and returns it to the bloodstream. Without this process, the body's tissues would become waterlogged, and circulation would falter. The vessels of the lymphatic system act as drains, absorbing what is left behind and guiding it back toward the veins near the heart. In this way, the system ensures that the amount of fluid leaving the blood matches the amount returning, keeping the body in steady equilibrium. To appreciate the importance of this, consider the vastness of the exchange. Every day, about 20 liters of plasma flow out of blood capillaries into the tissues. Of this, about 17 liters are reabsorbed directly into the blood. The remaining 3 liters, however, remain in the tissues. Though this may seem a small amount, if it accumulated day after day, the swelling would become enormous. The lymphatic system quietly prevents this by collecting those extra 3 liters and returning them to circulation. It is a subtle correction, but without it, the body would not be able to function. The mechanism begins with the lymphatic capillaries, whose walls are designed to allow fluid to enter when tissue pressure rises. Proteins and larger particles that cannot easily re-enter blood capillaries are also taken up by lymphatic capillaries. In this way, the lymphatic system serves not only as a drain but also as a cleanser, preventing the buildup of proteins and waste that would otherwise disturb the tissue environment. From the capillaries, the fluid, now called lymph, moves through larger vessels, passing through nodes where it is filtered, before being returned to the blood at the subclavian veins near the heart. This continuous circulation highlights the partnership between the cardiovascular and lymphatic systems. The heart pumps blood outward, carrying nutrients to tissues, and the lymphatic system quietly returns the overflow. Together, they form a cycle of delivery and recovery, ensuring that every cell lives in a balanced environment. If either part fails, the balance is lost. Too little drainage, and tissues swell. Too much leakage, and blood pressure falls. The body depends on this cooperation for survival. The consequences of imbalance are seen in conditions such as edema, the swelling of tissues due to excess fluid. Edema can occur for many reasons: injury, inflammation, heart disease, or blockage of lymphatic vessels. When the lymphatic system is unable to perform its task, the effects become visible. Limbs may become heavy, swollen, and uncomfortable. In severe cases, the skin may stretch, and movement may become difficult. These situations remind us that the silent work of fluid recovery is not a luxury, but a necessity. The importance of lymphatic fluid balance is also clear in the digestive system. Specialized lymphatic capillaries called lacteals, located in the villi of the small intestine, absorb dietary fats and fat-soluble vitamins. These nutrients are packaged into tiny particles called chylomicrons and carried into the lymphatic system. From there, they travel through the thoracic duct and enter the bloodstream. Without this pathway, the body would struggle to process fats efficiently. Thus, the lymphatic system is not only balancing water, but also ensuring the proper distribution of energy-rich molecules. To picture this process, imagine a garden after rainfall. The soil absorbs much of the water, but some pools in the low places. If the water lingers, roots may rot, and plants may drown. The lymphatic system is like a hidden network of drainage channels beneath the soil, quietly guiding the excess water away, preventing the garden from becoming overwhelmed. At the same time, it carries with it bits of debris and nutrients, redistributing them so that the environment remains healthy. The body, like the garden, thrives not on abundance alone, but on balance. This balance is so seamless that we rarely notice it. Day after day, fluid moves out of capillaries, and day after day, lymphatic vessels return it. The tissues remain supple, the blood volume remains stable, and the inner environment of the body stays constant. It is a reminder that health is not maintained by dramatic events, but by countless small corrections, happening silently in the background. The rhythm of lymphatic drainage is also tied to movement. Muscles contracting during walking or even gentle stretching help push lymph along its vessels. Breathing deeply creates pressure changes in the chest that encourage lymph to flow upward. Even during rest, small contractions of vessel walls continue the process. In this way, fluid balance is not separate from life's rhythms but woven into them. Every step you take, every breath you draw, helps sustain the balance of water within you. When reflecting on this function of the lymphatic system, one can sense its connection to calmness itself. Just as the mind finds peace and balance, so too does the body. Too much or too little disrupts harmony, but steady correction restores equilibrium. The lymphatic system embodies this principle, gently adjusting, quietly draining, always working toward balance. As we move forward in this exploration, the next step is to consider the lymphatic system's role in digestion more closely. While we have already touched upon lacteals and fat absorption, the full story reveals another layer of how this quiet system sustains life. In the next part, we will look at how the lymphatic system contributes to nutrition, turning the food we eat into energy that flows through the body in silent partnership with blood and breath. 12. The lymphatic system and digestion. The lymphatic system, though often described as a guardian of fluid balance and immunity, also has another essential role that links it directly to the nourishment of the body. It assists in the absorption and transport of dietary fats, a task that is carried out by specialized lymphatic vessels in the small intestine known as lacteals. This quiet work is not as widely known as the system's role in immunity, yet it is vital. Without it, one of the body's most important sources of energy would never fully reach the bloodstream. To begin, let us recall the process of digestion. When food is eaten, it is broken down mechanically by chewing and chemically by enzymes and stomach acid. Proteins are reduced to amino acids, carbohydrates to simple sugars, and fats into smaller droplets of fatty acids and glycerol. Most nutrients, such as sugars and amino acids, are absorbed directly into the bloodstream through the walls of the small intestine. But fats are different. They are not easily soluble in water, and the blood, composed mostly of water, cannot carry them in their raw form. Instead, the body has developed a special pathway, the lymphatic system, to handle them. Within the lining of the small intestine are countless tiny finger-like projections called villi. These villi increase the surface area for absorption, ensuring that nutrients from food can be efficiently drawn into the body. Inside each villus lies a network of blood capillaries, ready to absorb sugars and amino acids. Alongside them lies a single, delicate lymphatic capillary, the lacteal. This small vessel is designed specifically for fats. When dietary fats enter the small intestine, they are emulsified by bile salts from the liver, broken into smaller droplets, and then digested by enzymes into molecules small enough to cross the intestinal lining. Once inside the cells of the villi, these fatty acids and glycerol are reassembled into triglycerides. They are then packaged with proteins into tiny, transportable particles called chylomicrons. Because chylomicrons are too large to enter blood capillaries, they slip instead into the lacteals, which open widely to receive them. From the lacteals, the chylomicrons enter the lymphatic circulation, joining the clear stream of lymph. This lipid-rich lymph is sometimes called chyle, a milky fluid that flows from the intestines through the mesenteric lymphatic vessels. Slowly, it makes its way into the larger lymphatic trunks, eventually joining the thoracic duct. From there, the fats are released into the bloodstream near the heart, where they can circulate throughout the body, ready to provide energy, support cell membranes, and serve as building blocks for hormones. This pathway demonstrates the versatility of the lymphatic system. It is not simply a passive drain for excess fluid, nor only a highway for immune cells. It is also an essential transporter of nutrients, linking the act of eating to the act of living. Each time a meal rich in oils, butter, nuts, or other fats is digested, the lymphatic system quietly ensures that these nutrients enter circulation. Without this pathway, fats would remain trapped in the intestines, unavailable to the cells that depend on them. The importance of this process is reflected in how much the body relies on fats. They are dense sources of energy, providing more than twice as many calories per gram as carbohydrates or proteins. They also serve as insulation, protecting the body against cold, and as cushions, protecting organs from injury. In every cell, the outer membrane is built from lipids, giving it structure and flexibility. Certain vitamins A, D, E, and K are fat-soluble, meaning they can only be absorbed and transported when paired with fats. The lymphatic system, by carrying chylomicrons, ensures that these vitamins reach the tissues where they are needed. The movement of chyle through the lymphatic system is slow and steady, much like the flow of other lymph. It is guided by the same mechanisms, muscle contractions, breathing, and valves within vessels that keep lymph moving upward. After a fatty meal, the lymph leaving the intestines is noticeably milky in appearance, a visible sign of the nutrients it carries. This process is so central to nutrition that even its disruption can cause profound consequences. If the lacteals are blocked or damaged, fats are poorly absorbed, leading to malnutrition despite adequate food intake. In reflecting on this role, one can picture the lymphatic system as a bridge between the external world and the internal body. The food we eat is transformed into molecules, and the lymphatic vessels carry those molecules across the bridge, placing them into the bloodstream where they can sustain life. The image of milky chyle flowing gently through transparent vessels serves as a reminder that nourishment depends not only on eating, but also on the hidden networks that deliver what is eaten to every cell. The connection between digestion and immunity also becomes clear in the intestines. The walls of the digestive tract are lined with lymphoid tissue, known as Peyer's patches, which monitor the contents passing through. These clusters of lymphatic tissue sample antigens from food and microbes, training the immune system to tolerate what is harmless and respond to what is dangerous. Thus, the digestive role of the lymphatic system is inseparably linked to its defensive role. It absorbs nutrients, while at the same time teaching the body how to coexist with the countless microbes that live in the gut. As we think of the lymphatic system's contribution to digestion, it becomes evident that this system is not only about defense or balance, but also about nourishment. It is the quiet pathway through which the richness of food becomes part of the body, sustaining energy, growth, and health. It is a hidden partner in every meal, every bite, every act of nourishment. From here, our journey turns toward a fascinating aspect of the lymphatic system, its circulation without a central pump. Unlike the heart, which drives blood with strong contractions, the lymphatic system relies on softer, slower forces to keep fluid moving. In the next part, we will explore this gentle circulation, discovering how the body sustains flow without haste, guided by the rhythms of breath, movement, and life itself. 13. The quiet circulation without a pump. Unlike the cardiovascular system, which is driven by the steady beating of the heart, the lymphatic system has no central pump. There is no organ that forces lymph forward in strong pulses, no rhythmic beat that propels it swiftly through the vessels. Instead, the circulation of lymph is quiet, unhurried, and dependent on gentle forces that arise naturally from the body's movements. This difference gives the lymphatic system a character all its own, one that reflects patience, subtlety, and the deep rhythms of life itself. To begin, it is helpful to recall the nature of lymphatic vessels. They are thin-walled, transparent channels with many valves, designed to ensure that lymph flows in only one direction, toward the veins near the heart. Yet without a heart to push it forward, lymph relies on external and internal aids. These aids are simple, but together they are remarkably effective, moving liters of lymph each day through an extensive network of capillaries, vessels, nodes, and ducts. One of the most important aids is the contraction of skeletal muscles. Each time a muscle tightens and then relaxes, it presses gently against nearby lymphatic vessels. This squeeze pushes the lymph forward, while the valves inside the vessels prevent it from flowing backward. In this way, ordinary movements, walking, stretching, bending, become pumps for lymph. Even subtle shifts of posture or the small contractions that maintain balance are enough to keep the flow alive. Without our awareness, every step we take contributes to the circulation of lymph. Breathing is another force that propels lymph. With each inhalation, the diaphragm descends, expanding the chest cavity and lowering pressure inside it. This drop in pressure encourages lymph from the lower body to move upward toward the thoracic duct. When we exhale, the diaphragm rises again, creating gentle pressure that pushes lymph forward. This rhythmic rise and fall, repeated thousands of times each day, is a natural engine for lymphatic flow. Deep, slow breaths in particular are especially effective, creating strong pressure changes that encourage lymph to ascend. In this way, even the quiet act of breathing nourishes the circulation of lymph. The arteries also play a part. Because many lymphatic vessels run parallel to arteries, the rhythmic pulse of blood through these arteries exerts a subtle pressure on their neighbors. Each heartbeat creates a small wave that nudges the lymph along, adding to the forces of movement. Though the lymphatic system lacks a pump of its own, it borrows the rhythm of the cardiovascular system, weaving its flow into the heartbeat. In addition to these external forces, the vessels themselves contribute. The walls of larger lymphatic vessels contain smooth muscle that can contract rhythmically in small waves. Each segment of vessel between two valves, called a lymphangion, functions almost like a tiny pump. The smooth muscle contracts, squeezing the lymph forward into the next chamber, where a valve prevents it from sliding back. Then the next contraction begins, and the process repeats. This built-in activity ensures that lymph continues to move even when the body is at rest, though the flow is much slower than that of blood. The combination of these mechanisms, muscle movement, breathing, arterial pulses, and vessel contractions creates a circulation that is steady but unhurried. Lymph does not need to rush, for its role is not immediate delivery of oxygen, but rather the slow recovery of fluid, the transport of fats, and the constant surveillance of the immune system. Its pace is in harmony with its purpose, deliberate, patient, and enduring. This quiet circulation has consequences for health. When the body is active, lymph flows more easily. Physical movement stimulates muscles, deepens breathing, and increases the forces that propel lymph. When the body is still for long periods, such as during illness or inactivity, lymph flow slows, and swelling may occur in the legs or feet. This is why gentle movement, stretching, and deep breathing can help maintain lymphatic health. It is not exercise in the vigorous sense, but movement in its simplest form, walking, shifting, breathing, that sustains the flow. One of the most fascinating aspects of this circulation is how seamlessly it integrates with ordinary life. We do not need to think about it, plan for it, or control it. The very act of living, moving, breathing, existing is enough to keep the lymph flowing. In this sense, the lymphatic system reflects a deep wisdom of the body, that essential processes are supported by the natural rhythms of life itself. To imagine this flow, one might picture a series of small streams winding through a quiet valley. There is no roaring river, no rushing current, only the steady trickle of water, guided by gentle slopes and occasional breezes. The streams are fed not by a single source, but by countless drops of rain, each one adding to the flow. In the same way, the lymphatic system is not driven by one great pump, but by the countless small forces of daily life, muscles pressing, lungs expanding, arteries pulsing. Together, they create a circulation that is continuous, reliable, and sufficient. When this system is disrupted, its importance becomes more apparent. If lymphatic vessels are blocked, or if movement is restricted for long periods, lymph may pool in the tissues, causing swelling and discomfort. This reminds us that even though the flow is quiet, it is essential. Just as a garden depends on hidden channels of water to keep the soil balanced, the body depends on lymphatic flow to keep tissues healthy. The quietness of this circulation carries a lesson. Not all power is loud, and not all motion is forceful. Some of the most vital currents in life move with patience and subtlety, sustained by rhythms so gentle they are almost invisible. The lymphatic system embodies this truth, showing us that strength can be found in quiet persistence. From here, our journey will turn to the conditions that arise when this delicate balance falters. In the next part, we will look softly at common disorders of the lymphatic system, not in a way that disturbs rest, but as a gentle reflection on what happens when harmony is lost and how the body strives to restore it. 14. Common disorders in gentle terms. The lymphatic system, like every part of the body, works tirelessly in silence, sustaining balance and protection without drawing attention to itself. Yet sometimes this delicate harmony is disrupted. When it is, the effects remind us just how essential this quiet system is. In reflecting on these disorders, it is helpful to speak gently, focusing not on distress, but on the ways the lymphatic system strives to heal, adapt, and restore equilibrium. One of the most familiar conditions is lymphedema, a swelling that occurs when lymph cannot flow freely through its vessels. This may happen if the vessels are blocked, damaged, or overwhelmed by excess fluid. The swelling most often appears in the arms or legs, where gravity already slows the flow of lymph. The affected limb may feel heavy or full, and the skin may appear stretched. Though the condition can cause discomfort, it also demonstrates the resilience of the body. When fluid builds up, the tissues themselves hold it, protecting circulation until balance can be restored. Gentle movement, massage, and breathing exercises can often encourage the flow once more, helping the lymph to resume its journey. Another common experience is the swelling of lymph nodes during infection. Many people have felt this in the neck during a sore throat or under the jaw during a cold. The swelling occurs because immune cells within the nodes multiply rapidly, responding to the presence of bacteria or viruses in the lymph. What feels like tenderness is, in fact, the sign of a defense being mounted. The nodes enlarge as they fill with active cells, preparing antibodies and training T cells to respond. When the infection passes, the nodes quietly shrink again, returning to their usual, hidden size. This cycle is a reminder that the immune system, though invisible most of the time, is always present and ready to protect. In some cases, the lymphatic system faces challenges that come from within. Autoimmune conditions arise when immune cells mistake the body's own tissues for intruders. In such cases, the lymphatic pathways still carry messages and mount responses, but their focus is misguided. This reminds us of the delicate balance the thymus teaches early in life. To recognize self as safe and non-self as danger. Though these conditions can be difficult, they also highlight the precision required of the lymphatic system, which must always walk the fine line between vigilance and tolerance. Infections of the lymphatic vessels themselves, known as lymphangitis, can occur when bacteria enter through a wound and spread into the vessels. The vessels, normally invisible, may appear as faint red streaks under the skin, showing that the lymph is carrying immune cells directly to the site of injury. Here again, the system demonstrates its purpose: to connect tissues with defense, carrying aid wherever it is needed. With treatment and rest, the lymphatic system recovers, and the vessels return to their hidden, silent role. There are also rare but more serious conditions in which the cells of the lymphatic system themselves become disordered, such as in lymphomas. These are cancers of the lymphocytes, when their usual balance of division and rest is lost. Though such conditions can be complex, even here the principle of the system remains evident. The same cells that defend us are also capable of growth and renewal, and it is this very vitality that sometimes becomes uncontrolled. Treatments seek to restore balance, guiding the system back to its quiet state of harmony. Through all these conditions, whether swelling, infection, or imbalance, one theme remains constant. The lymphatic system is deeply connected to health. When it falters, the effects are visible. When it functions, it is nearly invisible, maintaining balance without a sound. This contrast is striking, for it shows us that much of what we take for granted, the absence of swelling, the quiet defense against infections, the steady renewal of cells, is the result of the lymphatic system working perfectly. It is also important to see that the body is resilient. Even when the lymphatic system faces challenges, other systems support it. Blood vessels, the liver, the bone marrow, and the immune organs all share responsibilities. No single organ or pathway stands alone. Each is part of a network of balance. This redundancy ensures that the body can adapt, compensate, and recover. Disorders remind us not only of vulnerability but also of resilience. To think gently of these conditions is to see them not as failures but as moments when balance is tested. Just as a river may overflow its banks after heavy rain, the lymphatic system may struggle when burdened beyond its usual capacity. Yet, given time, support, and care, the river finds its course again, and the body, too, returns to equilibrium. As we close this reflection on disorders, it is worth noting that the lymphatic system itself is not a source of distress, but a source of healing. Its purpose is always to restore, to cleanse, and to defend. Even in illness, it is working toward health, striving to bring the body back to balance. From here, our journey turns to a broader perspective, the relationship between the lymphatic system and the cardiovascular system. These two networks, flowing side by side, are partners in circulation. One carries blood with force, the other carries lymph with patience. They complete the cycle of fluids that sustain life. In the next part, we will explore this partnership, seeing how the two systems are intertwined in a harmony as steady as breath and heartbeat. 15. The lymphatic system and the cardiovascular connection. The human body is built upon networks. Some are visible, like the branching of trees in the lungs or the folds of muscle in the heart. Others are hidden, like the web of nerves or the channels of the lymphatic system. Of all these networks, two of the most closely connected are the cardiovascular and lymphatic systems. They move side by side, intertwined in purpose, complementing one another in ways that reveal the body's remarkable design. The cardiovascular system, powered by the heart, circulates blood through arteries, capillaries, and veins. Its forceful rhythm delivers oxygen and nutrients to tissues and carries away carbon dioxide. The lymphatic system, by contrast, flows quietly in the spaces between, carrying excess fluid, proteins, and immune cells back into the bloodstream. These two systems are inseparable, each completing the work of the other. Where the blood leaves off, the lymph begins, and where the lymph ends, it rejoins the blood. To appreciate this connection, let us trace the journey of fluid. Every second, plasma seeps from the fine walls of blood capillaries into the tissues, bathing cells in nutrients. Most of this fluid is reabsorbed directly into the blood, but a portion remains behind. Without recovery, this would lead to swelling and imbalance. It is here that the lymphatic system steps in, collecting the excess and carrying it away through lymphatic capillaries. As the lymph moves through vessels and nodes, it is cleansed, filtered, and enriched with immune cells. Eventually, it is returned to the venous system near the heart, joining once more with the blood. Thus, the cardiovascular system delivers, and the lymphatic system recovers, a cycle that repeats endlessly, day and night. This partnership also extends to the movement of fats and nutrients. While most sugars and amino acids pass directly from the intestines into blood capillaries, dietary fats enter lacteals of the lymphatic system, travel through the thoracic duct, and then flow into the bloodstream. Without this cooperation, fats could not be efficiently absorbed or distributed. The cardiovascular system receives what the lymphatic system delivers, ensuring that nourishment reaches every cell. Immune defense, too, depends on this partnership. Blood carries white cells to sites of infection, while lymph nodes filter lymph, activating lymphocytes that then enter the bloodstream. The two systems form a single circuit of defense, one transporting cells to where they are needed, the other coordinating and preparing those cells. If the blood is the highway of the immune system, the lymph is its watchtower, scanning for danger and alerting the defenders. The physical closeness of the two systems emphasizes their connection. Lymphatic vessels run alongside veins, their valves echoing the design of venous valves. They borrow the rhythm of the heartbeat, the pressure of arteries, and the movements of muscles to keep lymph flowing. The cardiovascular system provides the forceful pulse, while the lymphatic system provides the gentle return. In this way, they resemble two streams running parallel, one swift and strong, the other calm and steady, yet both essential to the same landscape. The balance between the two systems is delicate. If the heart pumps too forcefully or capillaries leak too much fluid, the lymphatic system must work harder to recover the excess. If the lymphatic system is blocked or impaired, the blood circulation becomes unbalanced, leading to swelling and stagnation. Each relies on the other, and together they sustain the constancy of the body's internal environment. The harmony of these systems can be pictured as a great cycle. Blood leaves the heart, flows through arteries, reaches tissues, and gives its gifts of oxygen and nutrients. From these tissues, some fluid returns directly into veins, while some enters the lymphatic system, where it is filtered and purified. The lymph then travels through vessels and nodes until it, too, returns to the bloodstream. The cycle is complete, and with each turn, the body remains nourished, cleansed, and protected. This connection also reveals a deeper truth about life itself. Survival depends not only on delivery, but also on recovery. The heart may drive the flow, but without the lymphatic system, the balance would collapse. The lymph does not shout its importance with beats or pulses, but its quiet return is just as vital as the heart's loud rhythm. Together, they form a dual circulation, one fast and one slow, one forceful and one gentle, yet both equal in necessity. Reflecting on this partnership invites us to see the body as a whole rather than as separate parts. No system works alone. The heart and vessels depend on the lymphatics. The lymphatics depend on the heart and vessels. The interplay is seamless, reminding us that health is not the product of isolated organs, but of cooperation and balance. As we leave this reflection, the next step is to explore the role of the lymphatic system in healing. Beyond balancing fluids, absorbing nutrients, and defending against infection, it also participates in the repair of tissues, responding when injury or inflammation occurs. In the next part, we will look gently at how the lymphatic system contributes to the process of healing, restoring harmony when the body has been disturbed. 16. The lymphatic system in healing. When the body is injured, whether through a small cut on the skin, a sprained ankle, or a deeper illness, a quiet cascade of responses begins. Blood rushes to the site, bringing clotting factors and nutrients. Nerves signal pain to encourage rest. Muscles tighten to protect the area. And within this orchestra of repair, the lymphatic system takes its place, guiding fluid, carrying immune cells, and maintaining balance. Its role in healing is subtle yet indispensable, for it ensures that the process of repair unfolds smoothly, free of excess, and guided toward recovery. One of the first signs of injury or infection is swelling, known medically as inflammation. This swelling occurs because blood vessels in the affected area become more permeable, allowing plasma and immune cells to flood into the tissues. The extra fluid delivers nutrients and defenders, but it also creates an imbalance. Left unchecked, the tissues would become overwhelmed, heavy with fluid, and crowded with debris. It is here that the lymphatic system begins its work. Its capillaries, sensitive to pressure, open wide to accept the excess. Drop by drop, the fluid is collected, carrying with it waste products, fragments of damaged cells, and even bacteria or viruses that may have entered. As the fluid moves through lymphatic vessels, it passes into nodes, where immune cells wait in readiness. If pathogens are present, the nodes become active, multiplying cells that can neutralize invaders and coordinating the wider immune response. In this way, the lymphatic system ensures that the process of healing is not blind but guided. Harmful agents are detected, defenses are mounted, and the fluid that eventually returns to the bloodstream has been cleansed of much of its burden. This cycle of drainage and defense continues throughout the healing process. In the early stages, when swelling is greatest, the lymphatic system works diligently to remove the excess fluid. As repair advances, its flow carries away the debris of dying cells, clearing the ground for new growth. Even after visible healing has occurred, The lymphatic system continues its quiet work, fine-tuning the environment of the tissues until balance is fully restored. The importance of lymphatic involvement in healing can be seen in simple experiences. Consider a minor cut on the hand. At first, the area reddens and swells, warm to the touch. This is blood and fluid rushing to the site. Soon, the swelling lessens, and the wound begins to close. Behind the scenes, the lymphatic vessels have been carrying away excess plasma, dead bacteria, and fragments of tissue, allowing the repair to proceed without obstruction. Or imagine a sprained ankle, swollen and tender. Part of that swelling is fluid, waiting for lymphatic vessels to carry it away. Gentle movement, elevation, and time allow the lymphatic flow to increase, gradually reducing the swelling as healing progresses. Even in illness, the lymphatic system supports recovery. When a respiratory infection occurs, lymph nodes in the neck swell as they filter out viruses and activate immune cells. Though this swelling may be uncomfortable, it is a sign of healing at work, a signal that the lymphatic system is gathering its forces to restore health. Once the infection passes, the nodes quietly shrink, returning to their hidden state. In chronic conditions, where healing is slow or incomplete, the lymphatic system remains engaged. Inflammation may persist, requiring the constant removal of excess fluid and the constant vigilance of immune cells. Though the work is harder, the principle is the same. Balance must be maintained, and healing must be supported. The connection between the lymphatic system and healing also extends to growth and renewal. In developing children, the system not only supports defense but also contributes to the shaping of tissues as they expand and mature. In adults, it continues to clear away waste from daily wear and tear, keeping tissues ready for repair. Even in aging, when other systems slow, the lymphatic system persists in its quiet duty, sustaining the body's ability to mend itself. To imagine the role of the lymphatic system in healing, one might picture a quiet caretaker in a garden after a storm. The storm has broken branches, scattered leaves, and left puddles of water. The caretaker moves gently among the plants, clearing away debris, draining the water, and ensuring that the roots are not drowned. Little by little, the garden returns to balance, and new growth begins. The storm is not undone, but the garden is restored. So too does the lymphatic system care for the body after injury, tending to the details of recovery with patience and persistence. In all of this, the lymphatic system does not act alone. It works with the cardiovascular system, which brings in supplies, with the immune system, which fights invaders, and with the tissues themselves, which repair and regrow. But its role is unique. Without drainage, the battlefield of healing would be cluttered. Without filtering, the risk of infection would rise. Without balance, repair would falter. It is the quiet steward of recovery, ensuring that healing proceeds in harmony. As we continue, is to consider how the lymphatic system changes across the stages of life. From the robust activity of childhood to the gradual shifts of aging, the system evolves, adapting to the needs of the body at each stage. In the next part, we will reflect on these changes, tracing the journey of the lymphatic system across the arc of a lifetime. 17. The lymphatic system across life stages. The lymphatic system, like all the systems of the body, is not fixed or unchanging. Instead, it evolves across the span of life, shifting its priorities, reshaping its activity, and adapting to the needs of the body at each stage of growth, maturity, and decline. To follow its journey through life is to see how a single network of vessels, nodes, and organs takes on different roles in infancy, childhood, adulthood, and old age. This journey also reminds us of the quiet resilience built into the human body, resilience that endures even as structures shrink, slow, or fade with time. Long before birth, the lymphatic system begins to form. Within the developing embryo, lymphatic vessels branch outward from veins, creating the early framework of what will become a vast network. These delicate beginnings appear early because even in the womb, balance is essential. The fetus, though nourished through the placenta, must still regulate its internal environment, and the lymphatic system plays a part in that process. The spleen and thymus also begin to take shape, preparing to produce and train immune cells that will be needed once the child emerges into the world. By the time of birth, the system is present and poised for its duties, though still immature and awaiting the challenges of the outside environment. In infancy, the lymphatic system reveals its importance in dramatic ways. The newborn enters a world filled with countless microbes, foreign particles, and substances never before encountered. At this stage, the thymus stands out as a central organ, proportionally large in infants compared to its size later in life. The thymus sits behind the sternum, active and full of energy. Within it, immature T lymphocytes undergo training, learning to distinguish between the body's own tissues and the vast array of foreign elements they may encounter. This process is critical, for it prevents the immune system from turning against the self, while ensuring it can respond to true threats. The lymph nodes in infants are also highly active. They enlarge frequently as they encounter new antigens and as immune cells multiply in response. Many parents notice that young children often have swollen nodes in the neck or under the jaw. Far from being a sign of weakness, this swelling reflects a vigorous immune system learning and adapting. It is evidence of the lymphatic system performing its role as a trainer and guardian, ensuring that every new exposure becomes a lesson for the future. Childhood is a period of expansion, not only in physical growth but also in the maturing of immunity. Every new experience, a scraped knee, a first encounter with pollen, a mild infection is processed through the lymphatic system. B cells and T cells are activated, antibodies are produced, and memory cells are formed. These memory cells are a gift from childhood to the future, providing rapid recognition and response if the same threat returns later in life. The tonsils and adenoids, part of the lymphatic system's outposts at the throat and nasal passages, are especially active in these years. They intercept particles from the air and food, alerting the immune system to potential dangers. The frequent enlargement of these tissues in childhood reflects their constant vigilance in guarding the entryways of the body. Adolescence marks a turning point in the life of the lymphatic system. While the body as a whole is surging with growth and change, the thymus begins a process known as involution. Its once large and active tissue begins to shrink, replaced gradually by fat and connective tissue. By late adolescence or early adulthood, the thymus has already lost much of its size and activity, yet its work is not wasted, for by this stage, it has produced a wide population of trained T cells that will persist in the body for decades. These cells, along with memory cells, formed during earlier exposures, ensure that the immune system is capable and resilient, even as the thymus itself retreats into quiet. During adulthood, the lymphatic system settles into a steady rhythm. The lymph nodes, spleen, and marrow maintain their functions of filtering, renewing, and defending. B and T cells continue to circulate, responding to new infections and remembering old ones. The system is less prone to the dramatic swellings of childhood, not because it is less important, but because it has already built a strong foundation of defenses. In this stage, the lymphatic system is most often invisible, quietly maintaining balance, without calling attention to itself. It works constantly in the background, carrying lymph, filtering fluid, supporting immunity, and returning fats from digestion into the bloodstream. As adulthood progresses, the thymus continues to shrink until it is little more than a remnant. The lymph nodes and spleen may also show gradual changes, becoming less cellular with time. Yet the immune system continues to function, sustained by the memory cells and mature lymphocytes created earlier in life. The system has shifted from one of training and building to one of maintenance and balance. Its role remains essential, though its activity is quieter, less dramatic, more measured. In old age, the lymphatic system, like the rest of the body, reflects the passage of time. The thymus is almost entirely replaced by fat. Its training days long past. The lymph nodes may shrink, and the spleen's filtering functions may become less efficient. This decline contributes to a broader process known as immunosenescence, the gradual weakening of the immune system with age. Older adults may respond more slowly to infections, may not generate as strong an immune response to vaccines, and may take longer to heal. Yet even in this stage, the lymphatic system continues to serve. Lymph still flows, immune cells still patrol, and the balance of fluid in tissues is still preserved. The system has not ceased, only slowed. The story of the lymphatic system across life stages can be pictured as a tree through the seasons. In infancy and childhood, the tree is in spring, bursting with new growth, forming its branches, and setting its structure. In adolescence, it reaches summer, strong and full, even as some early growth begins to slow. In adulthood, the tree is in late summer and early autumn, stable, steady, and productive, bearing the fruits of earlier development. In old age, it is in late autumn, the leaves fewer, the growth slower, but the roots deep, the trunk strong, and the presence enduring. At every stage, the tree remains alive, adapted to the season it is in. This vision of change reminds us that health is not a fixed condition but a flowing process. The lymphatic system adapts to the needs of each time of life. In youth, it is energetic and expansive. In adulthood, it is steady and watchful. In old age, it is quieter, but still faithful. Through it all, its purpose does not change: to preserve balance, to protect, and to sustain. In this way, the lymphatic system is not only a network of vessels and nodes, but also a companion across the journey of life. It stands as a teacher in childhood, a guardian in adulthood, and a steady presence in old age. Even as it shifts and changes, its essence remains the same: the quiet maintenance of harmony within the body. From this reflection, we now move to a broader view. The lymphatic system is not only a feature of human anatomy, but also part of a larger biological truth. Across nature, from the simplest organisms to the most complex, balance and circulation are principles of life. In the next part, we will step back and see the lymphatic system in this wider context, appreciating how its quiet work reflects patterns that extend far beyond the human body. 18. Lymph in a larger biological context. When we pause to consider the lymphatic system, it is tempting to view it as something uniquely human, a quiet network hidden within our bodies. Yet its principles are not confined to us alone. The ideas of circulation, balance, and defense are woven into the very fabric of life itself, appearing in countless forms across the natural world. To place the lymphatic system in a broader biological context is to see that it reflects patterns of organization and survival that stretch far beyond the boundaries of human anatomy. At its essence, the lymphatic system is about balance. It collects what is in excess, filters what may be harmful, and returns what is useful. This principle of regulation is universal. In the simplest single-celled organisms, fluid balance is maintained by small vacuoles that pump out excess water, ensuring the cell does not swell and burst. In more complex creatures, Specialized structures evolved to handle the same task. In freshwater fish, for example, gills and kidneys constantly regulate the flow of salts and water, preventing imbalance. In this way, the human lymphatic system is a continuation of a very old theme in biology: the need to preserve homeostasis, the steady state in which life can endure. The idea of circulation, too, is universal. Rivers and streams flow across landscapes, carrying nutrients, carving valleys, and sustaining ecosystems. In plants, water rises through xylem vessels, carrying minerals from the soil to leaves, while sugars move downward through phloem to nourish roots. In insects, open circulatory systems bathe tissues directly in hemolymph, their version of blood, moving nutrients and waste in a slow but sufficient flow. Even here, echoes of the lymphatic system can be found, for hemolymph lacks the dramatic pulse of a heart like ours, moving instead in quiet waves that mirror the gentle pace of lymph. The immune role of the lymphatic system is also reflected across life. Plants, though lacking lymphocytes, mount defenses by recognizing invaders and producing chemical barriers. Invertebrates, such as insects and mollusks, rely on innate immune cells that engulf bacteria, much like the macrophages of our nodes. As life grew more complex, specialized organs evolved, and in vertebrates, the lymphatic system emerged as a refined structure for both balance and defense. From fish to mammals, nodes, spleens, and thymus-like organs appear, adapted to each species' needs, yet always devoted to the same underlying purpose: the protection of life against threats. To see the lymphatic system in this wider frame is to recognize it as a particular expression of universal patterns. Just as ecosystems recycle nutrients, the lymphatic system recycles fluids. Just as forests filter air and water, lymph nodes filter lymph. Just as communities of organisms depend on cooperation and exchange, so too does the body depend on the circulation between blood and lymph. The parallels remind us that the body is not separate from nature but part of it, shaped by the same principles that guide rivers, forests, and ecosystems. This perspective also deepens our appreciation of the system's slowness. Lymph moves without haste, carried by muscles, breath, and valves. Its unhurried pace may seem inefficient compared to the forceful rush of blood, but it is perfectly suited to its purpose. In the natural world, the slowest processes are often the most enduring. Soil forms grain by grain, forests grow tree by tree, and rivers carve valleys drop by drop. Likewise, lymph preserves balance not through speed, but through persistence. It reminds us that in biology, as in life, patience is as powerful as force. The connection between lymph and the larger world is perhaps most striking when we reflect on the idea of cleansing. In nature, streams carry away debris, winds disperse seeds and spores, and decomposers recycle the remains of the dead. These processes maintain balance in ecosystems, preventing stagnation and creating the conditions for renewal. The lymphatic system performs a similar task within the body, removing waste, carrying away damaged cells, and preventing the accumulation of what is no longer useful. In both cases, cleansing is not destruction but renewal, making space for life to continue. Even the idea of distributed defense is universal. Just as a forest does not rely on a single tree to defend it but spreads resilience across thousands of species, the body does not rely on one organ or one cell but distributes its defense across nodes, spleen, thymus, marrow, and vessels. This redundancy is a hallmark of nature. Diversity, distribution, and cooperation ensure survival even when one part falters. The lymphatic system embodies this principle within us, just as ecosystems embody it around us. Reflecting on this larger context also brings a sense of calm perspective. The lymphatic system is not an isolated curiosity of human anatomy, but part of a continuum of solutions that life has created across billions of years. It is an answer to questions all organisms must face. How do we maintain balance? How do we defend ourselves? How do we circulate what is needed and remove what is not? In every stream, in every leaf, in every cell, echoes of the lymphatic system can be found. To imagine this connection, picture the lymphatic system as a quiet river flowing within you, while outside, real rivers move across landscapes, nourishing fields and forests. Picture the filtering of lymph in nodes as the filtering of water through wetlands, where impurities are removed and life is protected. Picture the education of T cells in the thymus as the training of young animals in the wild, learning what to fear, what to trust, and how to survive. In each case, the pattern is the same: balance, defense, renewal, and persistence. In this way, the lymphatic system is more than anatomy. It is a reflection of life's broader wisdom. Its slowness teaches patience. Its balance teaches harmony. Its vigilance teaches resilience. It reminds us that the human body is not separate from the natural world, but a mirror of it, shaped by the same quiet forces that shape rivers, forests, and skies. As our journey continues, we will turn inward again, moving from the universal back to the personal. In the next part, we will imagine the flow of lymph itself, tracing its course as though we could follow it with our mind's eye. This visualization will allow us to sense the system not as an abstract network, but as a living current, flowing gently through us, like an inner river. 19. Imagining the flow. To understand the lymphatic system not only with the mind but also with the imagination, it is helpful to picture it as a living stream inside the body. Unlike blood, whose pulse we can sometimes feel in the wrist or the chest, lymph moves too quietly to sense. It does not surge, it does not rush, and it does not call for notice. Yet with reflection, we can imagine its flow, tracing its journey drop by drop, as if listening to a river that whispers beneath the surface of the skin. Begin with the tissues themselves, where the smallest of exchanges are always taking place. Blood arrives in thin-walled capillaries, and from these vessels plasma seeps outward, bathing the cells in a clear solution. Nutrients, oxygen, and hormones dissolve into this interstitial fluid, reaching the cells that depend on them. Once the cells have taken what they need, some of the fluid slips back into the blood, but not all. A portion lingers, holding fragments of proteins, bits of cellular waste, or even stray microbes. This excess, if left uncollected, would overwhelm the tissues. It is here that the lymphatic system begins its quiet work. Imagine tiny lymphatic capillaries opening gently, their overlapping walls parting like soft petals to welcome the excess fluid. With each intake, the interstitial fluid is transformed into lymph, given a new path, a new identity. The flow is slow, almost imperceptible, but it is constant, a steady stream beginning its journey. As the lymph moves into larger vessels, picture it guided by valves that open only one way. Each valve is like a gate on a hillside stream, preventing backward flow and ensuring that every drop moves forward, however slowly, toward its destination. The rhythm of walking, the lift of the diaphragm with each breath, and the faint throb of nearby arteries all nudge the lymph onward. There is no rush, no urgency, only persistence. Like water flowing through a meadow, guided by gravity and gentle slopes. At intervals along the vessels lie the lymph nodes, quiet oases where the stream slows to a pause. Here the lymph is filtered, its contents examined with patient care. Immune cells rest in readiness, like sentinels at a gate, watching for signs of danger. If the lymph carries nothing unusual, it is allowed to continue on, purified and calm. If it brings particles of bacteria or fragments of virus, the sentinels awaken, multiplying and preparing defenses. Yet even in this vigilance, the process remains unhurried, as though the system knows that balance cannot be maintained through haste, but through steady attention. Leaving the node, the lymph resumes its course, now cleaner, quieter, and more refined. It flows upward through trunks and ducts, converging from many smaller streams into larger rivers. Those from the right arm, right side of the chest, and right side of the head gather into the right lymphatic duct, while those from the rest of the body join the thoracic duct, rising gracefully through the chest. At last, the lymph empties into the great veins near the heart, merging with the blood and becoming once again part of the larger circulation. Its journey is complete. To picture this cycle is to imagine a hidden river inside you, endlessly circulating. It does not roar like waterfalls, nor does it flash like rapids. It is a river of patience, flowing silently through capillaries, vessels, nodes, and ducts, returning always to the heart. Every breath, every step, every gentle motion encourages it, even as you sleep, even as you dream. If you close your eyes and imagine it more vividly, you might see the lymph as a clear light drifting through narrow channels, branching and rejoining like pathways in a forest. At each junction, it pauses, lingers, and then continues. Its current is subtle but unbroken, like the steady drip of dew falling into a stream. The nodes are like small groves along the path, places of pause and watchfulness, where guardians stand silent beneath leafy arches. Beyond them, the flow resumes, winding always onward, patient as the turning of the seasons. The movement of lymph can also be felt as a metaphor for life itself. Just as lymph carries away what is no longer needed and returns what is useful, so too do we release the old and embrace the new in our daily lives. Just as lymph flows with the help of breath and motion, so too does life move forward with each step and each inhalation. The lymphatic system is not only a biological reality, but also a gentle reminder. Balance is found not in rushing, but in steady, unhurried flow. In imagining the flow of lymph, we can sense how deeply the body depends on rhythms we never notice. Even now, as you sit or rest, the lymph is moving, carried by your breath, guided by your posture, sustained by your smallest movements. There is a comfort in knowing that this river within you flows always, whether you are awake or asleep, active or still. It is the quiet background of life, constant and dependable. As our journey draws near its close, the final step is to reflect on the system as a whole. We have traced its vessels, visited its nodes, explored its organs, and followed its flow. In the last part, we will gather these threads together, seeing the lymphatic system not as a collection of parts, but as a unified whole. A hidden river of balance and protection flowing through the human body, always present, always patient. 20. Soft conclusion. As we arrive at the close of this quiet journey through the lymphatic system, it is helpful to pause and reflect on what we have seen. Piece by piece, we have traced this network from its smallest capillaries to its largest ducts, from the hidden marrow inside bones to the tonsils at the edge of the throat. We have followed the slow and steady movement of lymph, imagined its flow through nodes, and watched it return to the blood. Along the way, we have discovered that the lymphatic system is not only a structure of vessels and organs, but a gentle principle woven into the fabric of life itself, a principle of balance, of vigilance, and of quiet persistence. The lymphatic system works without fanfare. Unlike the heart, it has no sound to announce its beat. Unlike the lungs, it has no rhythm we can feel with every breath. Unlike the stomach, it does not remind us of its presence with hunger or fullness. It is, instead, a hidden companion, tending to the body silently, and yet its contributions are profound. It prevents our tissues from swelling. It nourishes us by absorbing fats, and it guards us by training and carrying the cells of immunity. Without it, health would falter within days. With it, life flows steadily on, supported by currents we never feel but always depend on. The imagery of rivers and streams has followed us throughout this exploration, and rightly so. The lymphatic system is a river inside us, calm, deliberate, and life-sustaining. Just as rivers on the land shape forests, fields, and valleys, so too does this hidden river shape the inner landscape of the body. It clears away debris, prevents flooding, and nourishes what must grow. And like rivers, it does not rush but moves patiently, finding its course, never ceasing, always returning to the source, in reflecting on its organs. We have seen how the spleen filters blood, recycling what is old and defending against what is harmful. We have watched the thymus educate young lymphocytes, teaching them discernment, so they may defend without harming the self. We have considered the tonsils and adenoids, small guards at the entrances of the body, and the marrow, the birthplace of the defenders themselves. Each organ contributes its part, and together they form a network that is distributed, resilient, and harmonious. We have also seen how the system changes with time. In childhood, it is vigorous and expansive, training and building. In adulthood, it is steady and quiet, maintaining and balancing. In old age, it slows but persists, still flowing, still protecting, even as other systems decline. This arc of change mirrors the seasons of life, reminding us that health is not static but always adapting to time and circumstance. Beyond the body, we have seen how the lymphatic system reflects larger truths, the principle of circulation, of renewal, of cleansing. These are found not only in anatomy but in ecosystems, rivers, forests, and even in the simplest of cells. The lymphatic system is, in this sense, a reminder that we are part of nature, not apart from it. Our bodies echo the same patterns that sustain the world around us. And finally, we have imagined the flow itself, clear streams, weaving through hidden channels, pausing in nodes, rising through ducts, and returning to the heart. This vision invites calm. It reminds us that even when we are still, movement is happening within us. Even when we rest, balance is being preserved. Even as we sleep, the river flows. In the end, the lymphatic system teaches a quiet lesson, that strength can be subtle, that balance is maintained not by force, but by persistence, and that the most vital processes are often the least noticed. It shows us that life depends not only on the dramatic beats of the heart or the powerful breaths of the lungs, but also on the unhurried, hidden currents that sustain us in silence. As you rest now, you may take comfort in this thought. Within you, rivers are flowing, guardians are watching, and balance is being kept. You do not need to feel it. You do not need to direct it. It happens on its own. A gift of life itself. The lymphatic system, invisible and unannounced, is always there, carrying away what is no longer needed, protecting against what should not remain, and returning what is useful to the greater whole. It is a system of patience, a system of resilience, and above all, a system of quiet harmony. And so our journey ends where it began, in stillness. The lymphatic system has carried us gently through its pathways, teaching us of flow, of balance, of protection. It leaves us with a sense of calm continuity, a reminder that life is sustained not only by what is loud and visible, but also by what is soft and unseen.